I am at First Light, sitting on my stand, an area I've been hunting right here in this area for close to 30 years. Immediately to my right, I see 4 or 5 shapes. I could just see their legs and the color of their hides, so I knew they were elk. But they moved through so quick, I couldn't identify if they were spikes or cows. They had walked right up behind me here in the dark. Down below in the cut there, about 300 yards downhill, I saw 13 elk cross through there in the morning. One was a spike, which I could not get a shot at, as the elk were pressured and pushed by other hunters. Here's a look to the right here, where early in the morning, just as it was getting shooting light, I saw those elk move through the distant trees, but could not identify them. Hey everybody, Mav Hunter here. It's been a little slow this opening morning, but so far I've seen 18 elk. I saw a 5x5 bull, and then about 300 yards away I saw a spike bull and 3 cows, but the spike was moving right along and I couldn't get a shot. Stay tuned, Mav Hunter. After being on my stand for several hours, I'm working my way along this ridge through an intersection of several elk trails. And I'm walking down this ridge to meet up with my friend Jeff. And he doesn't get a cell signal here, and he doesn't have an inReach, and his radio, his VHF is broken, so we have no way to communicate. So we set aside some preset times where we would meet and go over with what we saw that morning or what our plans were, and try to team up together on a hunt strategy and work for each other. So I'm working my way through the ponderosa pines here. Come up to an area I've looked over many, many times the past 54 years just to get a good view. The forest fire really did a number here. This used to be a pretty lush area, but now, last year in 2021, it was all moonscape, and now it's trying to come back. But the fire did a pretty good job of burning most of the trees. Looking out in the distance there, earlier from my stand, I counted over 17 orange blobs in the distance sitting on that long, flat ridge. They're all looking down in the canyon. Just imagine 17 hunters in about a half-mile stretch. That's public land hunting in Washington State.
This is where I go to make my circle around bench area. And up here there was, the meadow opens up, and there was like 13 elk bedded down, 4 spikes, and 200 yards above them.
How many spike bulls?
4.
4 spike bulls. Wow.
4 spikes. And 200 yards above them was a hunter, and he didn't see none of them. He just sat there, and I walked by him and waved.
And you passed those spikes because you had the big bull tag, right?
The big bull tag.
So you passed all 4 spikes?
Yes. It was quite the day.
That's a pretty good meadow that opens up back in those trees.
Big and wide.
All right. What's a good elk camp without a fire pit? So there's this old burned log, because they had a forest fire here last year, laying here, and because of my bad lower back, I could not move it. So I just took and rocked up one end of it and built a nice little outside fireplace. After all, at elk camp, it's nice to sit around an open fire. And the wind is blowing away from me and away from my gear, so none of my gear should see any sparks or smoke because of the predominant southwest winds. Well, the first day was pretty interesting in the morning. We went out in the afternoon, but it's pretty slow. The only thing we saw were about 8 other hunters. That's public land elk hunting.